Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We'll start with our Mangalacharan prayers, and hopefully others will join as well. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitanjana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroh Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Gita Amrita just joined. Very nice. So thank you all for joining for the last class on the Ishopanishad. We completed about 15 verses or so, and then we have the last 3 verses that we can do today. After we are done with the Ishopanishad, we will have Nectar of Instruction, which is the 11 verses written by Srila Rupa Goswami. Once we complete that, then we end the first semester. So let's do the verses from 16, 17, and 18. Till now, Ishopanishad talked about, in the beginning verses, about the impersonal nature of the Lord. In fact, we had verses that described Krishna as being present everywhere. For example, Tanejati, Tannaijati, Taddure, Tadvantye, Taduantarasya Sarvasya, Tadu Sarvasya Asya Bhahyataha. Which is that Krishna is very near and very far. He's inside of everything, he is outside of everything. And this sort of meditation on Krishna or as Brahman is something which is the goal of Upanishads. Upanishads actually point to this aspect of Krishna. And we know in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, 2nd chapter, and verse number 12, it is mentioned, Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. Because Bhagavan has these 3 different forms or 3 different aspects, then Upanishads increasingly focus on that personal form. And that is the reason why Upanishads are favorites of those who believe in Brahmavadis or Mayavadis. That is their book. They don't believe as much in Srimad Bhagavatam, but we as Gaudiya Vaishnavas have our very source of truth as Srimad Bhagavatam. Because Srimad Bhagavatam talks more about the personal aspect of the Lord. And because we are out to establish a relationship with Krishna, or in other words, discover our long lost relationship with Krishna, and to revive that relationship, we adopt the process of bhakti to render unalloyed personal devotional service to the personal form of the Lord. So the Upanishads, that's why there is a distinct difference. What you will see in the Upanishads will contrast when we do the nectar of instruction about the rasa or the sweetness of the Lord. For example, it is said that the holy name of Krishna, his activities and his characteristics are all sweet like nectar candy. But then when a person is afflicted with jaundice, he cannot taste or she cannot taste the sweetness of sugar. So all the rasa tattva comes about in nectar of instruction. But till this point, it has been a little bit of, you can say a little abstract in terms of who Krishna is and what we discussed. But 16, 17 and 18 mantras, they veer towards more personal aspects. For one, they clearly delineate the worshipper and the worshipped. One of the problems with the Mayavad philosophy is if Jiva is equal to God, then there is no question of worshipper and worshipped. But then in the last 3 verses, it's mentioned like that. So I'll share the screen and we can start from there. Let me know if everybody is able to see the screen.
Yes, Prabhu, I can see.
Yes.
Excellent. Right. So, in the interest of time, actually, I'll ask maybe Mansi Mataji if you can just do the repetition after me so that we can complete.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Text 16. Bhushan ekarshe yamasurya prajapatya
Pushan ekarshe yamasurya prajapatya
yuharashmin samuha yuharashmin samuha
vyuharashmin samuha
tejo yatte rupam kalyanatamam
tejo yatte rupam kalyanatamam
tatte pashyami yosavasau purushah sohamasmi.
tatte pashyami yosav asau parusha soham asmi.
Thank you. Mataji, please do the translation if you can.
O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun, as am I.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So if you can see here, the key word is the form which is called Rupam. And usually the Mayavadi or the Brahmavadi or other kind of misguided philosophers say that God's form is material, or if it is, because Brahman is the highest truth and God's form, when he takes on the appearance on the earth, he takes or assumes a material form. But then Upanishads say that in the previous verse, in the 15th verse, it is mentioned Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasya Pihitamukam. Tattvam Pushana Pavrano Sakya Dharmaya Drishte, where the devotee is praying to the Lord that please remove the effulgence that is blinding me to your personal form. And here the specific word rupam is used, which means that beyond that effulgence, there must be a form, and that form must not be material, because if it was material, then there was no reason for the devotee to ask to show the material form of the Lord, because the material forms are readily available anywhere on this world. Everybody has a material form. I can see your form and you can see my form. Of course, not on Zoom, but when we meet in person. So the conclusion is that implicitly or undeniably, or the only logical conclusion is that the Lord's form is transcendental, is full of bliss. Otherwise, there was no reason, A, to see the form or ask the Lord to remove Brahman effulgence, and B, to experience that form if it is not a spiritual form full of bliss. All right. Gitamrita, can you please do this particular paragraph if you can?
The Brahma Jyotir is described in the Brahma Samhita as the rays emanating from the supreme spiritual planet Goloka Vrindavana, just as the sun's rays emanate from the sun globe. Until one surpasses the glare of the Brahma Jyotir, one cannot receive information of the land of the Lord. The impersonalist philosophers, blinded as they are by the dazzling Brahma Jyotir, can realize neither the fractal abode of the Lord nor his transcendental form. Limited by their poor fund of knowledge, such impersonalist thinkers cannot understand the all-blissful transcendental form of Lord Krishna. In this prayer, therefore, Sri Ishopanishad petitions the Lord to remove the effulgent rays of the Brahma Jyotir so that the pure devotee can see his all-blissful transcendental form.
Thank you. And that's what is I was trying to explain. All right. Jagrati, can you please read this particular paragraph?
Lord fully maintains his unalloyed devotees, and he guides them progressively on the path towards devotional perfection. As the leader of his devotees, he ultimately awards the desired results of devotional service by giving himself to them. The devotees of the Lord see the Lord eye to eye by his causeless mercy. Thus, the Lord helps his devotees reach the supermost spiritual planet, Golok Vrindavan. Being the creator, he can bestow all necessary qualifications upon his devotees so that they can ultimately reach him. The Lord is the cause of all causes. In other words, since there is nothing that caused him, he is the original cause. Consequently, he enjoys his own self by manifesting his own internal potency. The external potency is not exactly manifested by him, for he expands himself as the Purushas. And it is in these forms that he maintains the features of the material manifestation. By such expansions, he creates, maintains, and annihilates the cosmic manifestation.
Thank you, Matsui. So, because one of the things as devotees, it seems little, I'll stop sharing here and then come back. It seems that the path of Krishna consciousness can be boring, as in like, okay, we are asked to do service, we have to chant the Maha Mantra, and we have to read books, but nothing seemed to happen, as in like, I'm not getting some immediate benefits. I am not experiencing the joy as the people in Brahman do immediately, or that is the goal. But then what is the goal, and how can I perceive this goal of Krishna consciousness? And in this particular paragraph, Srila Prabhupada actually writes, this is such a beautiful thing, this particular statement. Which is, as the leader of the devotees, meditate on this statement. As the leader of his devotees, he ultimately awards the desired results of devotional service by giving himself to them. And when we are on the process of bhakti, just think about it, that Krishna has immense potencies. He has such powers and opulences that one cannot even imagine amount of opulences Krishna possesses. When we as ordinary devotees serve Krishna, we hear about his opulences and about his glories and about his mercy and about his supreme power. And oftentimes, there is a little mismatch. Only is it me or somebody else sometimes has such thoughts? Maybe it's me, you're all exalted souls. You must
No,
know.
Prabhu, we all the time get these thoughts.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
So, because my goal is pure unalloyed service to Krishna, and Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, for those who have not done the second semester of Bhakti Sastri, in the 4th chapter, Krishna talks in the Bhagavad Gita, ye yatamam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. He says that as men surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So when the devotee approaches Krishna with some material motive, the Lord reciprocates accordingly. But then the question comes is, the devotee approaches Krishna saying, I have no motive. I have nothing to expect from you for in return for my service. And the Lord is a little bit confused, not confused, he's happy. But then the question is, or the observer is confused now, what will the Lord give this particular person? Because this particular person is saying, I don't want anything from you. And if the Lord gives material things or other things, which he is independently free to do so, in return for the devotee's service, the devotee is very disappointed because he or she didn't start with some expectation from the Lord. So what will the Lord give? And this verse answers the question. The Lord gives himself. But when he gives himself, there is a certain tests that he will do. There is certain assurance the Lord needs that you truly are here just for serving me and nothing else. And therefore, in the process of bhakti, while there is immediate cessation of material unhappiness, please understand, then the bigger question comes is that if this seems to be the end goal and I am not perceiving it, then what is my immediate return on investment when I perform bhakti? And Rupa Goswami writes in the Nectar of Devotion, where he describes, again, if we come to the 4th canto, where we study Nectar of Devotion, which is the summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the first qualities or the qualifications or the nature or the characteristics of pure devotional services, the first two is Kleshagni and Shubhada. Kleshagni means it just destroys material miseries, and Shubhada is it's auspicious. So any devotee in the beginning stages, when you perform or when you have this desire to perform pure devotional service to Krishna, then the situation becomes auspicious and the material miseries actually drastically come down. Now, we might have a follow-up, like why do the devotees experience miseries? But that is something we can talk later. If somebody has that question, we can talk later. But so far so good. We are we are having any questions, any comments. Okay, I'll stop because somebody has to tell me. Haribo, Kripatita Mataji, thank you for joining. She's joining all the way from Malaysia. And Gopi Ganesha Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. All right, if there are no questions, let's read again. Very heartening. Jagriti, Hare Krishna. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. One quick question. How do we know if the situation that we are in is Krishna testing us, or is it just something that is our prarabdha?
Thank you. I thought no one asked, but thank you, Jagriti. You did ask that question. We hear the statement that when we take initiation, the spiritual master takes all our karma. Did we hear that before or no? Then the question is, if the spiritual master takes all our karma, then why I am suffering post-initiation? Is that a fair question to ask? And devotees are suffering post-initiation, yes or yes? Yeah. So, when Krishna takes our prarabdha, two things have to be understood. And Krishna does take away our prarabdha. In fact, Krishna does mention in the Brahma Samhita, in the beautiful, not Krishna, but Brahma mentions in Brahma Samhita in this beautiful prayer, Yastvindra Gopa Mathavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhanurupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Cha Bhakti Bhajam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This verse is Yastvindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma. Whether one is Indra, the king of heaven, or a small tiny insect which is called Indra Gopa, Krishna is perfectly and impartially giving one the fruits of their activities. But who are those kind of people? Who are walking on their path of karma. But karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. Kintu is but. Which means, but those who serve him, kintu, who karmani nirdahati, so bhakti bhajam, those who worship him with bhakti bhajam, what happens? Karmani nirdahati, which means that one's karmic reactions get burnt up. So karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam going. So when one surrenders to Krishna and serves Krishna, Krishna destroys the sinful reactions. Now, the reactions of the work can be both positive and negative. Oftentimes, we have this notion, Krishna, please, keep my positive karma, please keep it intact, don't take it. My negative karma, please take it. But Krishna is saying, I'll take both. Now, as a result, we don't know for a fact if Krishna taking away my positive karma more or negative karma more, that I am suffering. Let me give an example. If a person has no money for medical treatment and he or she has to suffer a little bit, correct? Now, is that suffering coming from Krishna taking away the money you had that you could give for the treatment? Or is it he created the problem that is causing you the suffering? Am I making my thoughts clear? We don't know. So Krishna, what he's saying is, your reactions or token karma is exclusively given by me just to purify you. Nothing more, nothing less. And in that, we might not be able to understand. I'll tell, so Jagriti Mataji, I'll ask a simple question. There is a mother who gives everything, whatever the child asks. Candy, chocolate, soda, chips all day long. The child asks that and the mother gives. And then the child and the mother seem to be happy. And you can see, paint another picture. There is one more mother who's actually brutally pushing down broccoli down the child's throat, to make that child eat. Now, which is a good image?
Superficially the first one, but in reality it's the second one.
Exactly. So because Krishna is the absolute reality, his way of cleansing us can seem to be like the reactions of our own karma, but actually it is Krishna taking charge of that devotee to help that devotee overcome the reactions of it or bring him closer. Is that helpful, Mati?
Yes, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. And yesterday, I think I was discussing in a class that knowledge is a very important thing, especially in the Bhagavad Gita 4th chapter. We see how Krishna spends so much of time trying to describe many different sacrifices which are performed by brahmacharis and by grihasthas, on what sort of sacrifices they need to do. And he says the end result of that sacrifices. This is a beautiful thing because Upanishads talk of just sacrifices. So here, I'll just open a couple of verses from the 4th chapter. You are able to see the screen? Let me know if you cannot.
Yes.
Okay. So here, Krishna actually mentions a lot of steps on sacrifices, like what sort of sacrifices you perform and so on and so forth. Then in the very end, he says this statement. O chastiser of enemies, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. Now, why do we need to perform sacrifices? Krishna says, without sacrifice, you can never be happy on this planet or the next life. So you better perform some sacrifice. At least in the human form of life, this is absolutely essential. And then if you perform sacrifices, then it will culminate in transcendental knowledge. After that, because this seems to be a lot of work, who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance. Nowadays, the breath restraint happens because of allergies. I joke, but seriously, think about it. I mean, or some other things. We don't have that practice of doing all these things. Then the next aspect is, if you can't do all those things to get knowledge, Krishna gives the famous verse, Tadvidhi Pranipatena, and just try to learn the truth. But what if one is unable to, or one is not on the platform of either not having accepted initiation or unable to get initiation from a spiritual master, which is very much needed. So let's read this last one from the Upanishad. Sukumala Mataji, can you please read this? Just the
Yeah. The Lord always helps the pure devotees by imparting necessary knowledge within their hearts, and thus, out of his special favor, he dissipates all the darkness of ignorance. The speculative philosophers and yogis cannot imagine this, because they more or less depend on their own strength. As stated in the Katha Upanishad 1.2.23, the Lord can be known only by those whom he favors and not by anyone else. Such special favors are bestowed upon his pure devotees only. Sri Ishopanishad thus points to the favor of the Lord, which is beyond the purview of the Brahmajyotir.
Thank you. So here the path of bhakti that we take, because sometimes in ISKCON we have this charge. You people are just chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, or just reading, or just doing some little puja. There is no serious efforts to do other kind of things. And what sort of process is this? Because Krishna is saying that I can be known only through bhakti. This is the process that is being adopted by Mahaprabhu as he has given us this path of Krishna bhakti. All right, let's do the next one. Satat, can you just chant with me? So you are able to see the screen?
Yes, Prabhu.
Vayuranilam amritam
Vayuranilam amritam
atedam bhasmantam shariram
atedam bhasmantam shariram
om krato smara kritam smara
om krato smara kritam smara
krato smara kritam smara.
krato smara kritam smara.
Translation, please.
Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Mahabhav, can you just do the first 2 paragraphs of the board? Mahabhav, are you there?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'm here.
Yes. Can you do the first two paragraphs, please?
Yes, Prabhuji, of course. The temporary material body is certainly a foreign dress. The Bhagavad Gita 2.20 clearly says that after the destruction of the material body, the living entity is not annihilated, nor does he lose his identity. The identity of the living entity is never impersonal or formless. On the contrary, it is the material dress that is formless, and that takes a shape according to the form of the indestructible person. No living entity is originally formless, as is wrongly thought by those with a poor fund of knowledge. This mantra verifies the fact that the living entity exists after the annihilation of the material body. In the material world, material nature displays wonderful workmanship by creating varieties of bodies for the living beings according to their propensities for sense gratification. The living entity who wants to taste stool is given a material body that's quite suitable for eating stool, that of a hog. Similarly, one who wants to eat the flesh and blood of other animals may be given a tiger's body equipped with suitable teeth and claws. But the human being is not meant for eating flesh, nor does it have any desire to taste stool. Even in the most aboriginal state, human teeth are so made that they can chew and cut fruit and vegetables, although there are 2 canine teeth so that primitive humans can eat flesh if they so desire.
Thank you. Srila Prabhupada never misses an opportunity to emphasize that we are not this body. And one of the facets that came out from reading this is, if you think about it, cloth is a cloth. Of course, in the modern times, we miss the significance of that. But in the previous time, even maybe not in the US, but in India, in the 80s and 90s and so on and so forth, there was not so many retail stores or clothing stores where you can buy ready-made clothes. You had to buy a piece of cloth and you have to take it to the tailor, and then the tailor will stitch you whatever you desired. Now, if you see the cloth is just formless. It's just like this. This is just a cloth. It's just flat. There is nothing to it. But then, based on the size of person's body, the dress is outfitted accordingly. Yes. So same way, the matter, Bhagavatam says, is just constitutes nothing but atoms. But according to the jiva's propensity to enjoy, the nature gives such a body. And Srila Prabhupada actually takes some time to explain few of these things. And of course, he comes to the very famous verse, Yam Yam Vapi Smaran Bhavam Tyajatyante Kalevaram Tam Tam Evaiti Kante Sadabhav Bhavatam. So this, it's a beautiful purport. Please take your time to read last three purports. Every purport of Srila Prabhupada is quite brilliant, but the last three purports are really practical. And after explaining about the transmigrations of the living entity for some time, then Srila Prabhupada says, because a person is born or the jiva is born in ignorance, then after acquiring spiritual knowledge or acquiring transcendental knowledge, it's definitely a must in the human form of life. And after acquiring knowledge like that for many, many lifetimes, and Srila Prabhupada quotes this particular verse of Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. And but after that, after many lifetimes of knowledge, then a particular devotee surrenders onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the culmination of all transcendental knowledge, is to surrender onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Then the reason is, even though a person is not perfectly pure, but somehow has sufficient purity to surrender to Krishna, then Krishna will take charge. And it is, and then we will read these two particular verses. It is so inspiring and so hope-giving, so to speak. But before that, I'll take the question from Akhil, and then we can continue.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I had a question on the first line in the translation. Talks about the air of life being merged with the totality of air. Now, when we say totality of air, what are we to understand? I'm just getting the feeling that, I mean, based on my insufficient knowledge, it's something that can be used by the Mayavadis, like merging into totality of air, or am I totally misinterpreting here?
Thank you. It's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked. So literal meaning here is, let's take an example that the children, when you are young, you have the soap water and that like thing, and then you can blow bubbles. Yes or yes, right? And you can blow bubbles, and the bubbles are formed in the air. So a bubble actually encloses a certain amount of air, and when the bubble bursts, the air within gets merged into the totality of the air. And quiz question, you can type it in the chat. How many different types of life airs are there in the human body? First question. So is it 1? Is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 15? Or is it 17? 1, 5, 10, 15, 17. And you can choose one of the answers and type it in the chat. So the totality, so the air from the body is merged into the totality of air, but the jiva doesn't get merged into the totality of Brahman, because the jiva remains distinct. And if the jiva were supposed to be merged into Brahman, at that point of time, this statement seemed a little meaningless. Please remember all the sacrifices that I have done for you, because after this life, I'm just going to be merged into Brahman. what's the point of telling, what's the point of asking the Lord to remember the sacrifice? Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhu. Just so, am I to interpret this as anything? The life air is again, in a way, a materialistic idea, and the devotee does not care about it. All the subsequent petitions that he's making about remembering his sacrifices is for something that is beyond it, to progress devotionally and get closer to Krishna.
Correct, because the material body has air which gets merged into the totality of air. The other example usually the Mayavadis give is the pot. If you have a pot, then there is air, certain air enclosed within the pot, and when the pot breaks, the air from that pot merges into the totality of that air. But for the jiva, it is not merging into the totality of Brahman, because clearly this is being talked about the material body, right, Akhil? That so far so you agree, because
Yes,
but then the fact of the matter is, the Krishna says that matter and spirit are different. They don't behave in the same way. For example, if the body is burnt, the totality of air of the body merges because the air has no other place to go. Yes or yes?
It's true.
But for the jiva, that is not the case, because the jiva is not bound by the same rules as that of matter or material nature, because the jiva is completely distinct from matter. So when you apply this example to jiva, then you are having a comparison between two completely dissimilar objects. So that comparison will not hold.
Okay, Prabhu. So it almost sounds like, contrary to the ambiguity I had, this verse is supposed to demonstrate the distinction between material, the fact that a devotee does not care about the materialistic, like his materialistic features, and rather is more is talking about something beyond that. So it's totally opposite to.
No, your understanding is right, because the devotee right now is not saying, Lord, save my life heirs. He says, I don't care about my life heirs. Let it be merged into the totality. What I am caring about is my fervent plea that you remember all the services that I have done, so that my destination might be better in the next life. Or I
Thank you so much.
got your question wrong. Is that helpful?
No, Prabhu. This helped. No, Prabhu. It clarified a lot here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Sripatita Mataji, you have, can you read, please? Okay, that is, please read this paragraph. And next, Bhumika Mataji is next. You are muted. Can you read, or should I ask someone to read? If you are having difficulty, then I can ask someone to read Sripatita Mataji. You can just give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay. Bhumika, you are on phone, right? So then I'll ask, can you read if you are on phone?
Yes, Prabhuji. Actually, I can look into the book. Which page? Would you mind?
Here, the Lord clearly describes.
Page 128, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
128. Okay, Prabhuji. The Lord clearly describes his intimate relationship with his devotees in Bhagavad Gita 9.30.34. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, as well as Sudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in devotional service unto me. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me.
Thank you so much. So, and then I can ask Saurabh if you can do the next. This is like really, really nice art giving hope. If you can you read, Saurabh, or you're
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes, I can read. Prabhu.
yes, go ahead. Please read this. We cannot hear you. Or is it just yeah.
Is it better now, Prabhu?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur explains these verses in this way. One should regard a devotee of Krishna to be on the right path of the saints, even though such a devotee may seem to be Sudurachara, a person of loose character. One should try to understand that the real purport of the word Sudurachara. A conditioned soul has to act for double functions, namely for the maintenance of the body and again for self-realization. Social status, mental development, cleanliness, austerity, nourishment, and the struggle for existence are all for the maintenance of the body. The self-realization part of one's activities is executed in one's occupation as a devotee of the Lord, and one performs actions in that connection also.
We cannot hear you now, Saurabh.
One must perform.
Okay.
Can you ask somebody else to read?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll just read it myself. Or let's see if anybody else can do it.
I can read,
I
Prabhu.
can read.
Okay, Kripatita, you can read?
Yeah, I can read.
Please.
Sorry,
One must perform these two different functions along parallel lines because a conditioned soul cannot give up the maintenance of his body. The proportion of activities for maintenance of the body decreases, however, in proportion to the increase in devotional service. As long as the proportion of devotional service does not come to the right point, there is a chance for an occasional exhibition of worldliness. But it should be noted that such worldliness cannot continue for long because by the grace of the Lord, such imperfections will come to an end very shortly. Therefore, the path of devotional service is the only right path. If one is on the right path, even an occasional occurrence of worldliness does not hamper one in the advancement of self-realization.
Haribol, wonderful. Thank you. All right. So just I'm going seeing the chat. One devotee, Satwat, got it right. It is 10 types of life air. Well played. But but coming back, isn't that a beautiful purport? Isn't that a purport that is so much of hope giving? Because oftentimes in this Kali Yuga, especially where we have such tremendous amount of struggle for material existence, oftentimes, we have to act both on the platform of bhakti and also for maintaining the body. But Krishna, or Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying here, but when one increases, one becomes more devotional, then the maintenance aspect comes down. And the final stage of that is the verse 22nd from the 9th chapter of Gita. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janah paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Where Krishna says that for one who is thinking of me with no other focus, ananyas chinta, means that there is no other area, subject, aspect of anything that is the focus of my thought except Krishna. And when one is in that platform, then Krishna says, I protect what he or she has, and I will carry what they lack. So till we come to that stage, there is this juggle. And at times for the budding devotees or the devotees who are not on that platform, life seems to be a struggle. Yes or yes? Like had I not taken, we see people who are not in bhakti and we'll be like, why did I even take up this process? Because I neither am actually enjoying material. Spiritually, I'm not getting that bliss that is promised in the scriptures, where Mahaprabhu is dancing and chanting in love of Godhead. Even if I try to cry, I'm not getting any tears, let alone naturally coming out. But I see that those who are not devotees, they seem to be enjoying. Is that thought sometimes occurs, or is it just me? I think
it occurs for me, Prabhu.
Likewise, yeah, I have had that thought. But please understand, because we are on that path, we have to balance out. And at times it might seem a little tough, but we can pray to Krishna. Krishna, the bhaktis I am doing to please you, but then I have this burden called material existence or a material body. And so help me or guide me to make sure that I follow your instructions properly. I follow your advice properly. And eventually we'll come back, because when you see those who are not on the bhakti platform, they try so many things to become happy. And maybe from their perspective or expectations, they might be happy. I'm not saying it is not income or condemning their happiness in one sense, because they say, I set out these goals to be happy, I have achieved them, and I'm quote unquote happy. But when the time comes to pass away from this world, which everybody invariably does, then their life will be full of regrets. Because when I pushed for material acquisitions or bodily fulfillment, I barely cared for my spirit soul. And that's the most important thing that's going with me. My bodies and the bodily functions and the bodily relatives, nothing is going with me. But then I wasted my life not at least trying to understand or do Krishna Bhakti, which is the essence of life and which I can take from one life to next. And in fact, this particular verse here, this is a devotee who is saying to Krishna, please remember my services after a lifetime of bhakti. Not that I didn't do anything and now when time comes and okay, death has come in the form Krishna and I have given up everything. No, please remember. Krishna will say, what did you do? I should remember. Right? Yeah. Yes. It's a beautiful purport, a big purport. And please take some time to do that. Any kind of questions? The other thing is there is one thing I wanted to what is this? Okay, let's do the last one. Rupali Mataji, please do this particular last para of this, and then we can move on to verse number 18.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Rupali Mataji, yes, okay. I can hear you.
I'm not able to see my screen for some reason.
Oh, no worries. Okay. I'm
I'm
sharing
trying to adjust.
no, I'm sharing my screen. Let me
Yeah,
stop.
I got it, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Unless one is accustomed to devotional practice, what will he remember at the time of death when the body is dislocated? And how can he pray to the Almighty Lord to remember his sacrifices? Sacrifice means denying the interest of the senses. One has to learn this art by employing the senses in the service of the Lord during one's lifetime. One can utilize the results of such practice at the time of death.
Thank you. Because many people say that I can do what I need to, and then at the end I'll remember Krishna. But as Srila Prabhupada points out, how much can you remember Krishna at the time of death? Because that has not been the practice in the lifetime. That is one thing. And from the sadhaka perspectives, I think we invest our time seriously to chant our 16 rounds, because that is the most effective thing. And I will say, as a struggling sadhaka myself, if I can somehow or other chant my 16 rounds with attention, to the best of my possible attention, then to a lot of extent, I shall be able to overcome the tendencies of material nature. Otherwise, it will be impossible. My success depends on my 16 rounds. If I can have that goal or attitude in life, then yeah, we can make substantial spiritual progress. With that, I'll take Manasi Mataji's question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhuji, this is a very interesting text. Actually, I always thought when we are praying, we always pray that we are engaged in the devotional service to the Lord. But here it's written that whoever he's written, he's saying that please remember my sacrifices for you. And I thought it's very interesting that I never thought that I should also pray to the Lord that, please remember. I always thought Lord knows. He's in my heart and he's sitting with me and he knows. So I thought, should we also pray to him that he should remember our sacrifices?
Srila Prabhupada actually writes saying that even if you don't ask the Lord, he remembers your sacrifices. I want to show that particular thing. I couldn't find it. Here. I'll please read this, and then I think it will answer your question.
Even if at the time of death, a devotee does not remember his service to the Lord does not forget him. This prayer is given to remind the Lord of the devotee's sacrifices. But even if there is no such reminder, the Lord does not forget the service rendered by his pure devotee. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I almost thought, oh my God, we've been missing out one big prayer.
No, he remembers. But having said that, I kind of, when I read this mantra quite a few times in past few years, it's humility to ask the Lord to remember, rather than say, don't you know? You know everything. Why should I tell you to remember? You will remember. So at least implicitly, I am saying to the Lord, you remember and do something for me. Rather, this is a level more humility. Even though it's like prayaschitta. After every sacrifice, we do some prayaschitta homa. That my Lord, I did this for you with full of faults, but please, whatever be it, please accept it, kind of thing. So in that sense, please remember the services. It's a more of a prayerful mood rather than saying to the Lord, hey, did you remember or not? You better remember and do stuff for me. At that point of time, Mata, how can you even dare tell Lord when your whole life is just ebbing away and you are practically dying? What are you going to say? Yeah. Is that helpful?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry, Manasi Mataji. Rupali Mataji, yes, your question.
Prabhuji, I have a question about 16 rounds. My question is that in the beginning stage, like it's hard to reach the 16 rounds. You have to increase slowly. So that how that affects like one in the beginning stage, like somebody starting with 1, 2, 3, for example, and it reaches a certain number. So is it proportionate to the number of rounds one chants?
And the answer is yes and no. And I'll tell you why yes and why no. So yes is in case you have taken initiation, then the answer is yes, because I have taken a vow to chant 16 rounds. And, I understand that chanting every day perfectly, 5 to 7 a.m. or 4:30, whatever is the time you set in the morning, completing all the rounds and perfectly with attention listening, it's impossible, because not just and this is mainly for those devotees who are initiated, because Krishna, Arjuna himself says to Krishna, oh Krishna, you are asking me to control the mind, because essentially attentive chanting means I'm focusing my mind for 2 hours on the Maha Mantra. It's an impossible task, because the mind is chanchala and it just keeps flying all over the place. I am chanting, and one moment I am sweetly meditating on the word Krishna, and the next moment my mind is off to Hawaii, and then enjoying the waves, and then or into that favorite restaurant, or that sari that person wore, or the dress or the car that person bought, or the insult that was told me at the temple, or somebody said, you didn't do this well. So the mind goes all over the place. The idea here is that as much as possible, we should strive. When we make effort to say that Krishna, I will do my best to chant my 16 rounds with attention, at least that intention is there. So for those who are initiated, yes, 16 rounds, it has to have certain quality and certain prayer, certain posture, certain seriousness. Think about it. I mean, yesterday I was coming back. Yesterday, actually, I was driving my daughter to store, and then she suddenly spotted somebody wearing a tuxedo. I mean, a young person wearing tuxedo, and all of a sudden she remembered the fact that it was prom night at her school, which is close by. And it was going to start in a couple of hours. I don't remember the time. But the fact is that this boy was wearing tuxedo, and everybody was getting ready, which means they are showing some serious intention, correct? They are not going to prom on shorts, on tank tops and flip-flops. Mahabhav, how about that? A picture for prom.
Yes,
A person casually strolling, sauntering into the prom, wearing flip-flops, shorts, and tank tops. Yeah, I mean, that prom is taken pretty seriously. You work for it. You really do on it. You try to find a tux and rent and whatever. So at least our intention should be like that for chanting our 16 rounds. How much will happen or not, but the intention should never change. So Rupali Mataji, that's the yes part. The no part is, of course, everybody, whoever comes to ISKCON temple, the moment they step in, the next day they'll start chanting 16 rounds. That's an impossible expectation. So everybody has to improve. So even if one person is chanting just one round, that one round is like taken to be a very, very meaningful, prayerful, whether you are initiated or not. the chanting should have certain amount of reverence and respect and some amount of prayers. Is that helpful, Rupali Mataji? Sorry for the very long answer.
No, Prabhuji, thank you. So, like, for example, somebody chanting 1 round or somebody chanting 4, so it's proportionate. What you experience in the path is proportionate to the how many rounds, number of rounds you chant, something like that.
No, because everybody has their adhikar. Some persons can chant only 1 round, and Krishna doesn't say, "Oh my God, you are chanting only 1 round. I won't accept you." He's completely independent. And whether one chants 1 round or 1 time the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In fact, Rupa Goswami writes in the Nectar of Instruction, and Mahaprabhu says, anyone who chants the name of Krishna once is considered to be a Vaishnava. So by that stretch of imagination, to judge somebody if they are chanting 1 round or 16 rounds, that is not the right way to look at it. But then, there is certain expectation if you want to take initiation that you have to come to 16 rounds and so on and so forth. But that doesn't prevent Krishna from accepting your 1 round that you are chanting with sincerity. Is that helpful?
Yes, but is it not contradictory that if somebody only once chants Krishna's name is also Vaishnava, and then who needs to chant 16 rounds too?
Help me out. Now that I usually, I don't have the luxury in the temple where I can pull out references. And now I have got the control of I'm the host, so let me pull it up. I think let's read that verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if somebody can help me pull up that verse. Let's see if I can pull it up. All right, it's Madhya 15. Okay, let's pull up. I'll have that verse. Okay. Now, let's see who has this. All right, we have a couple of people who did not read, so I will invite Ramesh. Do you want to?
Yes.
Wait, I'll tell you when to read. You can read the purport. So I'll do the verse and the translation. Prabhu kahe jar mukhe shuni ekbar, Krishna nama shei puja shrishta shabaka. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, whoever chants the holy name of Krishna just once is worshipable and is the topmost human being. All right, Ramesh, please.
Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that a person who simply chants the holy name of Krishna once becomes perfect and should be regarded as a Vaishnava. This is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Upadeshamrita 5. Krishneti Ishyagiritam Manashadriyeta. With such faith in the holy name, one may begin a life of Krishna consciousness. But an ordinary person cannot chant the holy name of Krishna with such faith. One should accept the holy name of Krishna to be identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendence himself. As the Padma Purana states, the holy name of Krishna is identical with Krishna and is like Chintamanijam, a touchstone. That name is Krishna personified in sound and is therefore perfectly transcendental and eternally liberated from material contamination. Thus, one should understand that the name Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. Having such faith, one must continue to chant the holy name. When one is situated on the neophyte platform, one cannot understand the devotional ingredients of a pure, unalloyed devotee. However, when the novice engages in devotional service, especially in deity worship, and follows the order of bona fide spiritual master, he is a pure devotee. Anyone can take advantage of hearing about Krishna consciousness from such a devotee and thus gradually becomes purified. In other words, any devotee who believes that the holy name of the Lord is identical with the Lord is a pure devotee, even though he may be in neophyte stage. By his association, others may also become Vaishnavas.
Thank you, Ramesh. Ramesh, just to clarify, it is Ramesh Bolineni, right?
No, Prabhu. Ramesh, Singham City.
Oh, Singham City.
Champion.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramesh. So here, Rupali Mataji, so anybody can chant the name of Krishna, but chanting with faith is a little different, nuanced perspective there. And when you chant with faith, then the bhakti happens. Even though you might chant the names of Krishna without faith, there is some effect, but not the same as when one chants with faith. Is that helpful?
Yes, I understand the faith part of it, but the numbers I was a little confused.
The numbers based on your advancement and the desire for advancement, you can steadily increase your rounds and come to the stage of chanting 16 rounds. Because okay, let me flip it and ask you another way around. In your perspective, from the time a person comes to Krishna consciousness, what is the exact time within which he or she should chant 16 rounds to get initiation? Exact precise number of months or years or weeks or days?
It really depends on the person.
Hence I rest my case. So if a person is chanting one round, they may take a lot of time to come to 16 rounds, or some people might do it immediately. So it all depends on their previous attachment to Krishna, their own desire in this life. So many factors play into those situations. But if one chants with faith, Krishna is not, oh, unless you chant 16 rounds, I don't hear anything. It doesn't mean anything to me. No, that's not that.
So the 16 rounds requirement is for the initiation.
Correct.
And so then what is the definition of a Vaishnava? Because it's also said if somebody chants only once, that person is called Vaishnava.
Well, implicit in your understanding is that only those who are initiated are Vaishnavas and others are not, but that is not necessarily true, correct?
Okay.
But the reason is a Vaishnava is a person or is a believer of Vishnu, right? So our definition need not be just narrowly tied to initiation itself. So.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. I mean, anyways, we'll do let's hurry up a little bit and let's try to do the last one because we do have certain. Okay, let's go to, okay, this is the one. All right. I didn't get a chance to read. Gopi Ganesha, Mataji, can you read?
Yes.
It? All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, here. So kindly repeat after me. Agne Naya Supataraye Sman.
Agne Naya Supataraye Sman.
Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan.
Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan.
Yudasmad Juhurana Meno.
Yuyudasmat Juhurana Meno.
Bhuishtam te nama uttim vidhema.
Bhuishtam te nama uktim vidhena.
Translation.
O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions of my past sins, so
there will be no hindrance to my progress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada hones in on this word, supatha. Supatha means right path. And Srila Prabhupada actually spends a lot of time on the importance of self-realization, and then how, let's do the first paragraph and then we'll get the theme of this. Trinad, how, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce. Trinad is good?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
All right, Trinad. Please do the first paragraph.
By surrendering to the Lord and praying for his causeless mercy, the devotee can progress on the path of complete self-realization. The Lord is addressed as fire because he can burn anything into ashes, including the sins of the surrendered soul. As described in the previous mantras, the real or ultimate aspect of the Absolute is his feature as the personality of Godhead, and his impersonal Brahmajyotir because he is dazzling, covering over his face. Fruitive activities, or the karma kanda, path of self-realization, is the lowest stage in this endeavor. As soon as such activities even slightly deviate from the regulative principles of the Vedas, they are transformed into vikarma, or acts against the interest of the actor. Such vikarma is enacted by the illusioned living entity simply for sense gratification, and thus such activities become hindrances on the path of self-realization.
Thank you. Let's see if somebody, okay. Akhil, you got a chance to read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I can read.
Yes, please.
Self-realization is possible in the human form of life, but not in other forms. There are 84 lakh species or forms of life, of which the human form qualified by Brahminical culture presents the only chance to obtain knowledge of transcendence. Brahminical culture includes truthfulness, sense control, forbearance, simplicity, full knowledge, and full faith in God. It is not that one simply becomes proud of his high parentage. Just as being born the son of a big man affords one a chance to become a big man, so being born the son of a Brahmana gives one a chance to become a Brahmana. But such a birthright is not everything, for one still has to attain the Brahminical qualifications for himself. As soon as one becomes proud of his birth as the son of a Brahmana and neglects to acquire the qualifications of a real Brahmana, he at once becomes degraded and falls from the path of self-realization. Thus his life's mission as a human being is defeated.
Thank you. So here, it's very interesting to see this. It might be slightly puzzling as well. Fruitive activities, or the karma kanda path of self-realization, is the lowest stage. As soon as such activities even deviate from the regulative principles of Vedas, they are transformed into vikarma. So a karma kanda section are portions of the Vedas, and the logical question is, if I'm following the karma kanda, which is by the Vedas, then how can it deviate from Vedas? Did I at least ask my question correctly? Because karma kanda is actually mentioned in the path of Vedas, and then such activities deviate from the regulative principles of Vedas, which means I'm doing karma kanda, how can they deviate? The greatest example in that situation is the animal killing. In the name of Vedas, the animals were being killed indiscriminately. And therefore Buddha came to say that, to promote non-violence, because the violence was being conducted in the name of Vedas. So in the karma kanda section, because a person is driven by sense gratification or fruitive results, they will do anything, and then the shortcuts will happen, and this will happen, and that will happen. Soon it becomes a very vikarma, and the most dangerous thing is it will happen in the name of Vedas. Oh, it's in Vedas, it's mentioned. So it's a very dangerous situation. So that's something I wanted to point out as well. Please read the...
Prabhu, I have a question. Can I ask?
Yes.
This is Saurabh, Prabhu.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, Prabhu, so just a quick one. So whenever it comes to Veda, is it always related to fruitive activities, or because Upanishads are also part of Vedas, right? Is it correct way to say?
Yes, yes, there are.
So what is the like? I don't understand, Prabhu. Is it like one part of Veda covers fruitive, and then other part covers Upanishad covers basically the
Correct, correct. So Vedas are divided into three main broad sections, which is called Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. So in the Karma Kanda section, it really caters to those who are very grossly materialistic, who are who take pleasure in the modes of material nature, who want to progress on the path of materialistic way of life. And for them, Karma Kanda offers incentives. So for example, if you perform this sacrifice, then you will go to heaven. If you please this God, then you will get this kind of returns. So it's all very fruitive, very, very business-based way of Vedic life. And in fact, this aspect of the Vedas, Krishna condemns, in fact, in the Bhagavad Gita. He's not very keen on this kind of Vedic thing, which is in the verse number 40. This is one. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommends various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so on and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say there is nothing more than this. So this is the Karma Kanda portion, which Krishna himself, and then Srila Prabhupada also writes the same thing. People in general are not very intelligent, and due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the Karma Kanda portions of the Vedas. So the Vedas have the Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. So the Upasana Kanda section is what the Upanishads have, where it is the higher purpose of the Vedas, and that's the reason why there are these three aspects. Is that helpful, Shara?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. This is really helpful.
Okay, so we will do this particular verse. I will say this verse, and then I'll also do the translation. This is a beautiful verse that gives us so much of hope as well. The verse goes something like this. Svapadamulam bhajata priyasya tyaktanya bhavasya hari pareshaha vikarma yachotpatitam katanchid gunoti sarvam hridi sannivishta. The Lord is so kind to the devotee who is fully surrendered to his lotus feet, that even though the devotee sometimes falls into the entanglement of vikarma, acts against the Vedic directions, the Lord at once rectifies such mistakes from within his heart. This is because the devotees are very dear to the Lord. And this particular verse is mentioned here to where this particular the phrase, please free me from the reactions to my past sins, though there will be no hindrance to my progress on the path of, and then this is the same thing that Srila Prabhupada uses this, that because the Lord loves his devotees so much that even if perchance they fall onto the path of vikarma or activities of that are against devotional service, then the Lord rectifies. And personally, this verse gives me great hope, because if the Lord did not have this aspect where he would be super strict and saying that you are responsible and only you have to get it, then I would have no hope. Persons like me, fallen persons like me, will have no hope in this world. Persons who are, fallen like me in terms of having so many anarthas from past, we will not have any hope if the Lord kind of didn't pitch in and say, no, you try, I will also help you. When you fall short, or when you do activities that are unsavory to bhakti, then I'll pull you back. The only point to be noted is that it is not deliberate by the devotee. It is either because of the past tendencies, the past bad habits, the past negative propensities that the devotees carries, that takes some time to get washed away by the strength of bhakti. It's more in terms of the devotee wants to do it, but is helpless. So yeah, so this is the situation. So one should take heart from bhakti. One should never give up hope or faith in Krishna, saying that he will not protect me. Krishna's guarantees that he will protect. And then Geetamrita, you are still there, beta?
Yes, Prabhu.
All right, please do this paragraph.
In this mantra of Sri Ishopanishad, the devotee prays to the Lord to rectify him from within his heart. To err is human. A conditioned soul is very often apt to commit mistakes, and the only remedial measure to take against such unintentional sins is to give oneself up to the lotus feet of the Lord, so that he may guide one to avoid such pitfalls. The Lord takes charge of fully surrendered souls. Thus all problems are solved simply by surrendering oneself unto the Lord and acting in terms of his directions. Such directions are given to the sincere devotee in two ways. One is by way of the saints, scriptures, and spiritual master, and the other is by way of the Lord himself, who resides within the heart of everyone. Thus the devotee, fully enlightened with Vedic knowledge, is protected in all respects.
Thank you. Nice. Is it hopeful? Is it encouraging? Or is it very discouraging? Jagrati, Mataji, what do you say?
Very encouraging.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's very encouraging. Thank you. Mansi, Mataji.
Prabhuji, what does a fully surrendered soul do? How can we aspire to become a fully surrendered?
I can give you the academic answer, which is the answer which is found in 1866, Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharman Parityagya. In the purport, it is said that there are the 6 limbs of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshashiti vishwasho goptritve varnantata. We can look it up. 1866. Atma Nikshepa Karpanye Shadvidash. So this is the 6 symptoms of surrender to Krishna, according to Srila Rupa Goswami. There are 6 limbs. One is to give up activities unfavorable, accept activities which are favorable. Always considering Krishna to be my protector. No matter what, in any and all circumstances, Krishna will protect me. He will never abandon me, even though the situation might seem dire. Gopritve Varanam Tata, that he's always my maintainer. Then Atma Nikshepa is the surrendering one's soul. And then Karpanya is extreme humility. In that stage, you will get extreme humility. This is Shadvida Sharanagati. But on the practical level, this is practical as well as theoretical, because it calls for actions. This is not a theoretical thing. It calls for action. In essence, if I can look back at my life and say that, in all situations, I somehow or other was able to remember Krishna and seek his guidance, then that is a broad benchmark of surrender. But if you want to really go finer, then you can read this particular verse and go, step by step on what it means. Maybe when there is some time, then we can have a class on the 6 limbs of surrender. Each item can be taken apart and then dwelt at length. Is that helpful?
Yes.
And then, few of the verses from the great saints in Bhagavatam also, when you read those verses, they give glimpse into their mind, into their state of surrender. Let's look up at one particular verse. There are a few verses like this, but let's look up at just one particular verse. So who wants to chant this verse with me? Okay.
Chant, Prabhu.
Mansi Mathji raised the hand, but why don't you try both doing it together? Even Jagriti raised, so you can unmute if you can try. You can sync up the voices, it's fine, but if not, we'll see. Mamottama shloka janeshu sakhyam.
Mamottama shloka janeshu sakhyam.
Samsara chakre bhramata swakarmabhi.
Samsara chakre bhramata swakarmabhi.
Vanmayayatmatmajadarageshu.
Vanmayayatmatmajadarageshu.
Nata asakta chittasya nanata bhuya.
Asakta chittasya nanata bhuya.
Okay, Jagriti, please read the translation.
O my Lord, my Master, I am wandering throughout this material world as a result of my fruitive activities. Therefore, I simply seek friendship in the association of your pious and enlightened devotees. My attachment to my body, wife, children, and home is continuing by the spell of your external energy, but I wish to be attached to them no longer. Let my mind, my consciousness, and everything I have be attached only to you.
Nice. This is Vritrasura when he's about to give up his body, and then we have almost similar statement by Maharaj Parikshit. I don't think we have time to get into that, but it is the theme. So combined with the Sharanagati verse which we just read from 1866, combine that with the prayers and thoughts of these exalted devotees as they prepare to give up their bodies, Vritrasura in this case, or Maharaj Parikshit in the first canto, then you can see that, there is the theory and then there is the practice, and then what they are feeling as well. Okay. All right. Who else? Okay, so Kamala Matji, please read this.
Vedic knowledge is transcendental and cannot be understood by mundane educational procedures. One can understand the Vedic mantras only by the grace of the Lord and the spiritual master. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau. If one takes shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, it is to be understood that he has obtained the grace of the Lord. The Lord appears as the spiritual master for the devotee. Thus, the spiritual master, the Vedic injunctions, and the Lord himself from within all guide the devotee in full strength. In this way, there is no chance for a devotee to fall again into the mire of material illusion. The devotee, thus protected all around, is sure to reach the ultimate destination of perfection. The entire process is hinted at in this mantra, and Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17 through 20 explains it further.
Thank you. So this is, I'll just read the last paragraph and we can end it here. Hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord is itself an act of piety. The Lord wants everyone to hear and chant his glories because he is the well-wisher of all living entities. By hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, one becomes cleansed of all undesirable things, and then one's devotion becomes fixed upon the Lord. At this stage, the devotee acquires the Brahminical qualifications, and the effects of the lower modes of nature, passion and ignorance, completely vanish. The devotee becomes fully enlightened by virtue of his devotional service, and thus he comes to know the path of the Lord and the way to attain it. As all doubts diminish, he becomes a pure devotee. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Sri Ishopanishad, the knowledge that brings one nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And Upanishad itself means that. So anyway, many congratulations. We completed one book of this first particular batch of Bhakti Sastri. We'll take one question, last question by Akhil.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, while we were going through the Chaitanya Charanamrita verse, we mentioned that it was mentioned that the name of the Lord is the same as the Lord. And we keep hearing that it's almost like an offense not to believe that. But when I look at a deity, I have a slightly, I get a slightly different feeling as compared to when I chant the name of the Lord. So is this a step in the progress, or is it a realization? How do you interpret the fact that the name is the same as the Lord? The name of the Lord is the same as the Lord.
So the one way to look at it is that what's your favorite fruit, Akhil?
I can't think of one, but some fruit. Yeah, probably pear fruit.
Any fruit, pick one name.
Pear fruit.
Pear?
Pear.
Pear, okay, pear. So if you want to eat pear, when you chant the name pear, is it the same as tasting the fruit? No, it is not, because the name is very different from the actual object. And it is the nature of this material world that there is an object and there is a name that denotes it. And the name will not be the same as the object, and they are two different things. And it is true of your case as well. Your name is Akhil, but calling out Akhil will not bring Akhil next to me, or not give the flavor or the personality of Akhil. But on the spiritual platform, there is no difference between the name and the person whom the name is being referred to. In this case, it is Krishna. The name of Krishna and Krishna himself are non-different. So that is the way one understands the spiritual aspect of it. And if you can't get to that realization right away, that is okay. But at least we have faith in the words of the previous acharyas that it is true. And when I chant the names of Krishna, I'll tell you one more thing. when one chants the name of Krishna, for those who are on love of Godhead, the symptoms show up automatically. Like there is choking of voice, there is, all the 8 transformation, Ashtasatvikara happens. The horripilation of the body, the choking of the voice, shivering, trembling, so on and so forth happen. And when you see the Lord, Bhagavatam actually also says the same thing, that when the exalted personalities got the darshan of the Lord, like Dhruva Maharaj or Prahlad Maharaj, they also had similar feelings. So this proves from scriptural basis, the name of the Lord has the same effect as seeing the Lord, which means they are not different. And in the material world, you can see, right? I mean, you're talking about a certain person, but when you see the person, the emotions change, yes or yes. I mean, I'll pick Jagriti just for the sake of it. I mean, I'm talking to Jagriti with Mansi Mati, which means that my reaction towards Jagriti will not be the same as much as I see her, yes or yes. It will be really different. But the very fact that the name of Krishna or the effect of those advanced souls who are chanting the name of Krishna is same as seeing Krishna, then you can see that they are not different. Thus, I prove my point. Is that
was very helpful, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Really helpful.
Okay, Rupali Masi, that's the last question, and then I will.
Prabhuji, may I ask a question from Mantra 15?
Yes, please.
I have a question about 3 plenary expansions or Vishnu Tattvas. So the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu is also called Paramatma, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And that means the individual super soul in every living entity.
Correct. So there are three expansions of Vishnu, which is first is called the Mahavishnu or the Karanodakashayi Vishnu. From him comes the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and then from him comes the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. And these are personalities who are responsible for the material creation and the maintenance of this whole cosmos.
So what is the difference between Kshirodakashayi Vishnu and Garbhodakashayi Vishnu? Because Garbhodakashayi Vishnu is called collective super soul. So I didn't understand what does it mean.
So it's fascinating that whatever you see around us at one point of time never existed. There was nothing. There was not even this space that was designated. And the Lord had to create certain space in certain corner of the universe. And then Karanodakashayi Vishnu or Mahavishnu, he lay down on the ocean. He created some portion and he lay down on that ocean. And then from him, innumerable number of small golden eggs came out. And they actually, each of those small eggs became universes. And so he expanded himself again from Karanodakashayi Vishnu to Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So within each universe, which is like a football, he filled each of the universe half with water. And then he lay down on that. And from that navel, at least in this particular universe, when it was created, from the navel of, when he lay down, and from his navel came out a beautiful lotus flower. And then Brahmaji came. But as soon as he entered each of the universe, all the jivas, all the collective jivas that were there in this particular universe were with him, and he expanded as the jivas, and along with the jivas, he expanded as the super soul. The reason why it is said collective is because the super soul is just one, but it seems as if he's divided into many. One example is given is that if there are 10 different rooms and then the sun is shining, the sun seems to be shining in each of the room and it seems to be different, but actually it is just one sun, but it appears as if the sun is in 10 different rooms.
So the sun is the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu in this analogy.
Correct.
And the sun, which is seen from individual room, is Kshirodakasha Vishnu.
Correct. You can for the sake of our argument, we can think like that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? All right. We can stop here today, and then we'll meet in 2 weeks' time, I guess, and we'll start the nectar of instruction. I'm so grateful to all of you for your attendance today, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time from now. Thank you so much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Srivas Pandit Prabhu.
Thank you so much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful grant.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.